So there are so many brilliant, amazing resources on every single campus, like amazing teachers, and they are studying and they're doing like the assignment that I gave you. I'm sure this teacher had to do that assignment for herself, right? She had to go in there and analyze what in fact is it that I need to study. So for competency 1, you have the principles, concepts, the stages of reading, the stages of spelling development, phonetic terms and elements, and assessment types. So and it is important to know that instructional strategies that support each stage of reading development, each stage of the reading development, we have different things that we know that we use. And so that's why this exam is tricky, because even if you do know, the instructional strategies for each, stage of reading development, you might on the day of be so anxious that you don't really, you're not mindful, and you just see a really great strategy and you're like, oh, I'm going to choose this one, but it's great, but not for where they are in their reading development, where they specifically stated they are. So you need to make sure that also with this exam, because yes, it is a science exam where you're having to apply theory, you're having to apply research, practice, the craft, because it is also a craft based on that diverse population that I told you about. What is it that they told you about the makeup of the student, where they are skill wise, and otherwise in their diversity in reading development. So she says, I have bolded these key terms on the next slide. You must also know the ages in which each stage presents, right? And so each stage of the reading, each stage of spelling development, what is normal, right? And so you can see that very normally. And like I said, I always bring up my girls, go back to it, but like you can see as far as their handwriting and their spelling, where they are in their reading sort of development better. So let me move on to the next one. So it's the stages of reading and development spelling. So it's the stage of reading, you have transitional, intermediate, advanced, and then the construction and reconstruction, that final stage. Reading is used for one's own need and purposes, professional and personal. And typically we want them to get to that, we want them to be at that age, at that area, like for me, I say saying that final stage is reached after they leave us, I think is like sort of undercutting it. I mean, my daughter's at that stage, and she's been at that stage since she's a senior this year, and she's literally done with school. But I can see why she's done with school if they are treating her like she is, still in this multiple viewpoints, but it's broad, complex thinking, materials, reading. And so you have that transitional stage up there at 7 to 8 years old. Student can read simple, familiar stories, selections with increased fluency. This is done by consolidating the basic decoding elements. Remember those basic elements that we discussed before I turned on the video. Oral language proficiency, phonemic awareness, all of those basic foundational skills, cite vocabulary, meaning, context in reading of common topics. So context, very important. The student has to understand that words have different meaning in different contexts. Another way that oral language proficiency really helps with students and their ability to comprehend a text, if they are able to understand the complexity of language and sort of the nuance of some words, and the fact that they in different contexts have different meanings or can be used in different ways. So the learner skills are extended through guided read aloud. So from 7 and 8 years old, guided read alouds of increasingly more complex texts, but not super complex. Because like I just said, especially I have exactly this transitional group living under my roof right now. So they're my littlest ones out of 5, and they are at this guided read alouds, but my daughter, the 8-year-old, is ahead. But like I said, she took kindergarten twice, once before COVID and once sort of after it, and is a little bit ahead in because of it, I believe. And she's just a different human. But they both are at in the same little bubble, and one of them really doesn't like my help at all. Actually, they both don't like my help at all. And so if the text that we've chosen to read is above my 7-year-old's reading level, she will shut down. Like, she's one of those, and it's her character. It's just who she is. Like, she doesn't like to be one-upped by her sister. She certainly doesn't like to make mistakes. And so, like, if it's above, and so I have to be more cognizant of what I'm allowing, what we're choosing or whatever I'm practicing with. So I don't set her up for failure and for her shutting down and not getting that practice time, which is why we make sure that they're in that, not at the frustration level, because, and like I said, my home book, our library, and their books that they choose for themselves are not like specifically on their reading level. So sometimes we do come across challenging words for them, and if I have to help them too many times, either one of them doesn't like it. So there you go. The frustration thing works for both of them, regardless of their skill level. Guided read alouds of increasingly more complex text, but not too complex, again, above their frustration level. And we would know that by testing their fluency and challenging their levels. By this stage, adults should be providing instruction that includes repeated and monitored oral reading. Teachers and parents must model fluent reading for students by reading aloud to them daily and asking students to read text aloud. And so there's nothing wrong, and that's what I would tell like my parents and my teachers. There's nothing wrong with doing like an easy text with your students, especially if they are at this age group over and over again, that they like, especially, and that has a lot of those sight words. And so for practice, for confidence, for fluency, and repetition, the more that they recognize the text and it becomes fluent for them, and they can move up to that next text and recognize, because they were repeated and monitored reading of these other texts where they picked up specific sight words and specific vocabulary to allow them to bridge to the next level. So and then you have this next area. But for us, science of teaching reading, it's the first two, the transitional and the intermediate, between 9 and 13. Reading is used as to learn new ideas, to gain new knowledge, to experience new feelings, to learn new attitudes from 2 points of view, specific comprehension strategies. They're learning to write for diverse purposes. By this time, the learner has transitioned to a stage where they're expected to learn from their own reading. Like, we're now reading and you are reading on your own in order to learn things. Now, it's not going to be like dissect what mitosis is during science. It's going to be something obviously that's like on their grade level, but they are going to be trying to extract, and we are going to be trying to see if they can decode and recall and sort of summarize and analyze things that are on grade level. Specific comprehension strategies we're teaching them, such as comprehension monitoring, which is what I sort of want you to do with your, what is it? I lost my train of thought. Your assignment that I have for you of printing out your competencies. I want you to do comprehension monitoring, that particular skill. So I want for you to read each one, and chunking the text is a different skill that we use for sometimes with comprehension monitoring, where we're like, sort of thinking about our thinking about our understanding of what we just read. So I want you to read each competency and think about your thinking, think about what you just read, and could you like I said, in conversation and or to your partner or to students, tell them what that piece means. And if you can't, then what you do is you seek out information, like, let me find the definition for this particular thing. If it's what is it onset rhyme? Is it onset rhyme and you don't know what onset rhyme is, you don't know the definition? It's the natural division. This is the definition of onset rhyme. And if you don't know that, that's not a big deal. Nobody goes around walking around knowing what that is unless you like literally teach it every single day. It's the natural division of a syllable in two parts. The onset comes before the vowel, and the rhyme includes the vowel and everything that follows, like whatever follows, like plan. Pl is the onset and an is the rhyme, onset rhyme. And so and there's different words that have sort of particular onset, like or recognizable characteristic onset rhyme, like diphthongs and digraphs. So knowing these things, having students know these things, important. So as you go through your competencies, I want for you to do comprehension monitoring. You can use graphics and semantic organizers if you need to, and I think you should. It's important. I do. Let me show you. And that's why I want to sort of show you my notes, but like here of my complex, and here is word recognition and language comprehension. And so here you have phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. Super important for the students in order to be skilled readers. They have to have these skills, but they also have to have these skills as far as language comprehension is concerned. Background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, oral language proficiency, literacy knowledge, in order to have that skilled ability to read. But many times coming up with a graphic or a semantic organizer, it's necessary for reading. It just is, especially if we're reading to learn. There is no other way around it. We have to do that. It is a skill that we need. So here's another one. I hate that I don't have, like, if I was a teacher in my classroom, I would have like an overhead projector and I'd be able to just show you this. But since I'm a teacher in my home office and I don't have like one of these, I need to find a way to do like this so I can, but hopefully
I can see.
Okay, so, and I'm going to take a picture of it for you, but it's the metalinguistic skills that I was talking about before, that ability to sort of like, think about and reflect about language, and to think and to have a whole bunch of stuff be sort of rote, common, easy access knowledge, comes from phonological awareness, which includes, but is not the same as, phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is included in phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is a term that includes phonemic awareness, the ability to identify, count, and manipulate parts of words, which is phonemic awareness, including syllables, onset rhyme, and phonemes. All of that, all of those different skills is under the overview of phonological awareness. And I just showed you that phonological awareness was one of the main components for for their ability to read. So lots of stuff in within this exam. So here you have the stages of spelling, and you can see them better. And I'm going to look for, let me see. Here's another visual, and it's just my own from teaching science of teaching reading. But that shows you the difference, you know, syllables, alliteration, onset rhyme, then that's early phonemic awareness. Basic phonemic awareness is phonemic blending, phonemic segmentation, where they physically segment the words themselves. And advanced is when they can delete, substitute, and they play around with the words. Substitution, reversal, and all the while also with the orthography, with the graphemes, what does it look like, and what is it written like in language. So let me see. So here we have pre-communicative. Your preschool and early kindergarten students, they use letters and are beginning to understand letters, and that letters are connected to sounds, right? That letters are the building blocks of words. But they show no understanding just yet, not preschool or early kindergarten, unless they're like super advanced and have a whole bunch of older siblings. They're gonna have no real understanding of like, how does reading really work? They don't come to you knowing how to read, and that the letters are connected to these sounds, and now I'm reading Cat in the Hat. That's not the way it happens. We know that in the classroom, and you know, theory tells us that there are particular stages, you know, scientific and research shows us over and over and over again. So a child at this stage may write letters scattered randomly across the page. And so like my daughter was in kinder last year, and this year she's doing awesome. But like I would say before last year, she was writing, or for sure when she was in pre-K, like would just put some words together, some letters together that looked like a word, but it really wasn't a word at all. You know, it just kind of looked like it was bunched together like a word, which was an improvement from when it was just scribbles all together. So we understand that they changed. So this is the definition, and your application. How does that apply to me in the classroom? Teachers will be helping students learn the alphabet. You have to help them learn the connection between the letters, the orthography, the graphemes, and their sounds, right? Understand that in English we read from top to bottom, from left to right, understand what a word is. So that's what they do in this age group at this stage, to help students be prepared for that and to build forward to the semi-phonetic stage. In that semi-phonetic stage, it's not fully phonetic, because but they're getting there, and that pre-communicative lays the foundation. So understanding what a word is, for example, the teacher might read a story from a big book with a class. As the teacher reads, the teacher might pause to talk about a particular words and letters in them, and might point to each word as they read it to reinforce that the words going from left to right, top to bottom, you know, that's the way that we read. And you know, if you have sometimes, and it's text that they can follow, you want them to follow along with you with their finger. And they used to make us sort of do that when we were little, with our pencil, to follow along in that way, each word as we read the word. But that might be too advanced for pre-communicative. So at least introducing it and showing them. And students have some concept of, you know, language and words, and sort of, you know, a 3-year-old might say, oh, Walmart, look, mom, Walmart, like, my 3-year-old said, but not because they can read, but because they understand that sort of orthography, or that symbol means Walgreens, but not that they could read it. So then we move on to semi-phonetic. Preschool and early kindergarten students begin to understand that letters stand for specific sounds. They begin to, start identifying those sounds, identifying words that use those sound, that begin with those sounds. Spellers at this stage often use single letters to represent words, sounds, or syllables, and might use the first sound heard in a word to represent the whole word, like M for mommy or U for you. A semi-phonetic speller might write IMHP for I am happy at that semi-phonetic stage. So typically kindergarten, when they're at first grade, they should be moving toward past that, where they understand that I am happy is more than just the I am HPPY. So teachers will continue to emphasize at this level the connections between letters and sounds, right? Building on their phonemic awareness between letters and sounds, and the grouping of different letters and sound, like TH makes the sound. How everybody make the sound. So if you see that in the onset, that's the beginning of this word. So even if it's the word thought, if they know that, onset usually sound is that they can get that far in the word, and maybe if a little bit more with their phonemic awareness, they can get through the words a little bit longer. So having them be able to make connections between letters, sounds will help the students listen for all the sounds that they hear in a word. They will continue to expose the students to conventions of writing, including using capital letters, writing from left to right, so like if they're starting in the middle of the page, tell them start all the way over here, because remember, you want to leave space. But what if you have 17 words in your sentence? And they might laugh because they know they're only going to use 3 words, but what if you have to begin over here, because we write from the beginning and all the way here to from left to right. So, and the differences between words and sentences, right? And how we have to space in between. My girls get annoyed with me because they were just learning about spaces. Like, obviously they're in first and second. So like the past couple of years, we've been working on writing, working on spaces has been a thing. And I'm a reading teacher, so it's like an irritating thing for me. And so I'll make them erase their stuff. And do like, mama, put a little space in between your words, like use your little pinky right there, and then don't start the next one. So sometimes I'll be like, I remember with your spacing, and they're like, we know, mom. Like, we know where their space is, but you want them to say, look, you don't want them to think it's you don't know how to spell a word, or you think this whole big chunk is a word. But indicate that you are pausing in between your word, and this is a different set of meanings. So the students need to understand that as well. Many teachers use a daily shared writing activity to work on these concepts. Really important to work on these concepts every single day. We want our parents to be working on these concepts, but far too often I find they send a lot of work home, and like, I'll do it because I'm a reading teacher and I'm a teacher and I have like a mini classroom in my room, in my office, but a lot of it, especially if it's a lot, the parents feel ill-equipped, and like they don't really know some of the strategies or how to help them best. And so maybe like one or a couple of exercises every or one sentence to work on with their parents every weekend or something like that, or every week. It's not so daunting. Sight words during the phonetic stage, that's late kinder and first grade. I'm working on that with my daughter right now, my first grader. She really needs to, we really need to work on it, and she doesn't like having to work on it with me, and feels like it's not like a punishment, but just her sister. She doesn't remember how hard her sister had to work, like she was just younger then, but she really did have to, and she complained about the sight words going through it and all that stuff. And she just forgets because she was younger. But later kindergarten and early first grade students use letter or group letters to represent each sound they hear in a word. In many cases, their spelling will not be standard, but you can tell it's phonetic spelling. It's like they're almost there because they're sounding out the word. And I'm telling you, that's exactly where my daughter is right now, my first grader. She's at the phonetic, and I'm like trying to push her because I know that she has an inner competition with her own self, with her sister, and she's unable to compete at this point because she's at this level, this phonetic level. So I need to help build her sight word bank, and I am currently doing this level of strategy in my own home in a way so that my daughter doesn't get annoyed with me, because she is 6, going to be 7, December the 21st. And it's like, she's like, I already know, Mom. We're all different, Mother. Like, so anyway, sight words, really important. Word families, they need to play with the language. And so that's how I'm doing it, playing with the word families. And like, I'll what was it that I was telling her? And we did it. It was oh my God, I can't think of what it was. And we did it over and over and over again. We made such a long word with, I don't know what it was, but on the way to school, and we were able to do it in a really long sentence, but I tried to make a game out of it. It was like his pin is in tin, something like that. And we did it like a million times. Like, we were trying to play with those particular word groups. And so hold on one second, I'm gonna let the dogs out. Let me just pause it really quickly. Oh no, it stopped. I'm just gonna pause it really. Why doesn't it let me see? Oh, here it is.